Morning, everybody, and welcome back to Fighting Writing. This week, I wanted to try something slightly different. I've recently bought myself, I wanted a multicolored 3D printer. I wanted something that could print in different colors at the same time. So I did a little research online and I went for the BambuLabs A1. Seems to get the best reviews. And quite frankly, it's an awesome machine. This isn't a sponsored video. They haven't sent me the machine. I had to buy it myself out of my own money. Although if you are listening, BambuLabs, as always, I'm open to offers. But I wanted to be able to print quickly, which is why I got it. But I also wanted to be able to try and print different colors at the same time. And then when I got it, I had an idea for terrain. Now, I love painting terrain. You can see I'm painting one of the Hexengard models here, and it's awesome. But it takes time. And sometimes, especially when I'm running a workshop, I'll think a couple of days before, I need another broken down building for that. And I don't have time to scratch build one, so I can 3D print one. That's great. But I don't then have time to paint it. So what I'm going to have a look at today isn't designed to be a replacement for painting terrain, although we'll see. But I want to see whether I can 3D print a building in different colors, so it's almost pre-painted, and whether that works as a process. So I'm going to have a look at how well it works in terms of how easy it is for me to prepare the file for the multicolored 3D printing. You have to do that in the software. It's called painting, ironically. So I'm going to see how hard that is to paint the file. Then I'm going to look at, is it time effective? Does it make much difference? And also, what's the quality like? Is it worth it? How does it look when it's finished? Now, I know I may have to do a little bit of painting at the end. I may have to do a little bit of touch-up or some weathering. But I want to see, can I cut out all of that base layer painting, basically? Can I cut out all of that kind of painting the wood, painting the bricks, and all that? You can see a building this size. It's taken me a few days so far just to find the time to sit down and go through everything. And like last night, I was painting it in the living room, and there's not much light, and so there's patchy bits that I've got to go back over today. So I want to try and cut out as much of that base in as I can just for these quick pieces. So I'm going to go and paint the model up. We'll print it and we'll see how we get on. I'm going to be using the Hexengard range, which is fantastic, from Tide World Studios. I'll put a link in the description to those. You can still get a late pledge on their Kickstarter for these amazing broken down Hexengard buildings. They've also got a Dwarven kind of steampunk one, and there's some city wall sets as well. So there's loads of cool stuff. They're definitely worth checking out. Again, not sponsored, but I just think their stuff is cool. So it's definitely worth having a look to see. I've done another video, which I'll put up here, about actually painting some of the Hexengard stuff up, because I think that's a good watch as well to kind of compare with the 3D printed version, or the 3D painted version, should I say. They're all 3D printed. But first, let's head over to the computer and try and paint up the files. Okay, so I've loaded the file up into the BambuLabs Studio and going into paint mode. We pick the colours that we want and we start painting them in. Now, this is just as easy as colouring across it. But I've loaded this in with grey as the primary colour. And that means that the whole model is grey. So what I want to do is change that, I think. Although there's quite a lot of brown, so I think what I'm going to do is colour the whole object in brown and then start colouring in all of the different colours. So to do that, so I'm going to go out and select, delete, change the primary colour to brown, and then drag in the file again. There we go. And then I can change that back to grey. No, I can't. I could change it to brown. Didn't realise I could do that. That's easier. There we go. And then get my keys correct. Start going through with the fill and just trying to pick out all of the different areas. So I found the easiest way to do it is to try and get as close as you can to the edges, and then go back in and fill in all of the little gaps. And what I'm going to do, go through the whole thing and paint all of the different sections. It doesn't really matter what colour you paint them, because what matters is the colour filament, obviously, that you've got in your printer. I could paint this cream for all I want, but if I put a red filament in, it's going to print in red. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to paint everything up, and then I will send it to the printer and we will see what it comes out at the other end. I think this is going to be a bit of a long job. Whether it takes longer than it would to manually base coat it, we will see. It depends how good I get at using the different tools available to me. But I'm going to give it a go and we'll see how we get on. I'm not going to do a kind of a time lapse of this because I've got a feeling it's going to be quite painful and long-winded, and I'll make lots of mistakes. So what we'll do is we'll skip to the printing and we'll see how it comes out at the other end. Okay, it's early morning and I've just had an alert that the print has finished. So, and it looks pretty impressive. Now, first thoughts, there's a lot of waste, there's a lot of printer poop. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the print and then I'm going to take it down to the kitchen and we will weigh, just out of interest, how much wastage there is, and how much the actual print weighs, just to see kind of a ratio, and then we'll have a proper look at how it's turned out and whether we can add any effects or things like that, whether we can paint it and stuff like that. So I'm going to go wake up properly and then we'll have a look at this. All right, so you can see from the video that I think they've come out really well. What I have done, because they do look a little bit cartoony, as I said, and what I want to do is just put some dark washes over them. I'm not going to paint anything up. The tiles on the roof, like I said, could do with being the same kind of blue as this, but I couldn't find a blue filament that I could get in kind of a reasonable time. They were all sold out. So I went for this ceramic looking one, which I think works well. But it's a little bit similar to the brown. That's my only thing with it. It is a little bit similar to the brown, but it will do for now. That's kind of a stylistic choice. It's kind of a me issue rather than that. So what I'm going to do, I did the metal parts in the same grey as that because I was restricted to colour. So I'm going to go around, I'm going to paint the metal parts, and then I'm going to put some black oil wash on it just to see if it, kind of adds a little bit of texture to it. And then I'll give it a dry brush. But that's all I'm going to do. I'm not going to paint anything properly. This has done the base layers for me. I think that is something that I could put on a table in front of some kids, get them to play with it, and they probably wouldn't have a comment on it. They would probably think it looked awesome. It's only, I think, as kind of, perhaps more serious hobbyists, people who've made terrain before, who perhaps would think, oh, the colours are a bit flat, it's a bit cartoony. It's not necessarily something that everybody would notice, but it is a bit glaring to me. So there's also like an issue there where my painting skills in the software are a little bit off and I missed a little bit. But ultimately, it has worked well. I've given it a coat of clear varnish, like I say, because I don't want the oil wash to kind of, I think just the plastic on its own would be a bit hydrophobic. It would kind of push the oil wash around. It wouldn't sit nicely. So the matte varnish will hopefully give it something to stick to, give it a key. I'm going to paint the metal. Once that's dry, we'll give it an oil wash and see where we go from there. Right, so with all that done then, what's the verdict? Does it work? I think is the first question, and I've got to say, yeah, I'm impressed. I think this would look even better if I'd have had the same kind of, if I could have had some dark blue filament for the tiles, and they do blend in a little bit with the wood, but that's just a colour of the filament issue rather than the actual process. So yeah, I mean, now it's been oil washed quickly and a very quick dry brush. I mean, the painting today with the oils and the dry brush has taken maybe 10 minutes, if that. There was obviously the drying time for the oil wash. That would have been a lot quicker if I'd used an acrylic wash, but I do love an oil wash. And it's still ever so slightly tacky now. But that, the actual painting time was 10 minutes. When you compare that to how long it perhaps would have taken me to paint this manually by hand, that's a lot quicker. However, that's obviously not the full story. Painting the model in BambuLab took a long time. It probably took me maybe 2 hours, 2.5 hours, which I still don't think is bad. It's not as quick as I would have been able to paint it by hand, obviously. But the bonus of it now it's been painted now is that if I wanted to, I could print these off again and again and again and again, and I wouldn't have to go through that process again. It's already painted and saved. So if in the future these the providers of these, so like Tide World Studios or whoever else is providing the STLs, provide a pre-painted version, obviously you'd have to pay a premium for that, and that'd be great. But if they provide a pre-painted version in the software, that could be a game changer, because that could start to make a huge difference. Now, again, this is not to replace painting terrain. This I'm going to paint by hand. This one I'm going through it slowly. I mean, it's a bit of airbrush in there, but airbrush by hand using actual paints because it's fun. Because it's fun, and I like it, and that's for me the part of the hobby that I enjoy. But like I said at the beginning of the video, sometimes I just need something quick that I can get done and get out to put on a table, and this is a good way to do that. I could easily see myself printing off another 5 or 6 of this building or a couple of variants to just scatter around a big board to throw down some Mordheim or some Warcry or something that wants a few buildings, doesn't need loads doing, and it doesn't matter if it looks a little bit samey. And now I've got the files, that would be really easy to do. So it's a bit of swings and roundabouts. I don't think it's ready to replace just general 3D printing and painting, but I think it's heading in the right direction to kind of be a complement to it. But that's not, again, the whole story. There's the time element of printing. So to print both of these parts took, give or take, about 24 hours, maybe a little bit longer. So that's a slow print. Now, the problem with what's really slows it down is the filament changes, which we'll get to in a little bit, because it has to constantly change the color. So the way it works is it will print all the brown bits on the first layer, and then it will change the color and print all the gray bits on the first layer, and so on. And then as it gets further up, you've got bits that you perhaps swap in between brown and gray and cream at these kind of middle layers. So it's just constantly changing color, or not constantly changing color, but it has to change color at least twice each layer. And that takes time. It has to cut the filament, it has to retract the filament, purge the filament, and then change into the new one, do the print and whatever. So that adds a lot of time. To print these in a single color would probably take about 6 hours, maybe even less. So there is a time sink there as well. But again, it's something I can leave overnight. So whether it's worth the extra time, I don't know. The total time to make this, with the painting in BambuLab and the printing and then the painting with the dry brush and the oil wash, I would say probably is about 26 hours, 27 hours. To do it manually with a 7-hour print, let's say, and then maybe 2 hours painting, that's 9 hours. So this is probably twice as long, 3 times as long, but there's less faff, and a lot of that work is being done whilst I'm sleeping or something like that. So, it doesn't replace it, but it has bonuses, it has benefits. So I'm quite happy with that. Will I do it for all of my terrain? Definitely not. I will stick, I'll still 3D print terrain and paint it. I'll still sculpt stuff out of foam. But this was a really interesting exercise to see how it could do. And obviously, if you then scaled it up to something like this, the painting time in BambuLab would go up, the printing time would go up. So it's probably a lot less realistic to do it for something huge like this building than it is to do it for something small like this. The other thing to talk about is the cost of the filament. Now, as I said at the beginning, as I just said, when it prints and changes color, it has to purge the filament that you use, and it does that by expelling a little bit of the filament, which we call printer poop, and then spitting it out at the side. Now, there is a lot of it because it's changing color a lot. Now, I wanted to see just how much, and I haven't done this yet, so I'm quite intrigued. This is, real live sort of, well, it's not really that exciting, but, it might be fun. I'm only going to do it for this piece because I didn't collect all of the poop for this piece, so I can't compare them. But this bottom piece, I collected all of the poop for. So the actual piece itself, excuse the resin-covered scales, weighs 123 grams. Okay, so there's 123 grams of filament in here, which is about 1/10 of a roll. Zero that. And now this is filled with the printer poop from this one piece. So that was 123 grams. There's a lot of poop. Okay, that's about, I don't know, maybe half. We'll check. So that's 170 grams. Let's put this into the bin. And that is 65 grams, say. So 170 plus 65, so that's 235 grams compared to, this was 123, I think. Yeah, 123. So we used about twice as much filament in waste as we did in the actual building. So that, for me, is a big negative. That is wasteful, that's costly, and that is what puts me off. And to be fair, I expected it to be perhaps not quite as much as that, but I knew there was a lot of waste. I could see how much waste there was as it was doing it. And you can see in the time lapse of it being printed, you could just see it building up and up and up and up. So that, for me, at the moment, kind of would put the dampener on. Well, that would stop me from doing this again because it just isn't worth it for that much waste. So in terms of the product that you get out at the other end, I think the quality's there. I think it works. I think that if I wanted to put a little bit more time in putting some dirty down rust on or something like that, I could make this look even better. But I think for a quick piece of terrain, the quality's there. That's a plus. That really works. I think in terms of time, you could probably argue either way. Depends how many of the same thing you're going to print, whether the time painting it is worthwhile, as in painting it in BambuLab. But I would kind of give that a tie. I'll give that a draw. But in terms of waste, that puts me off printing another one of these. So I think we're getting there. I think in the future, especially if STL creators start to provide them pre-painted, there's definitely a future for it. But for now, I think I'm probably going to stick with doing it like this, unless I need something really quickly and I can afford to kind of write off the waste just for that as a one-off. I think I'm going to stick to printing them like this or building them by scratch building and then painting them by hand because it's good fun. It is therapeutic and it's something that I enjoy doing. So as always, thank you for watching. If you do, and if you have enjoyed the video, please click the like button, please click the subscribe button, click the alert bell. Some of these videos are getting thousands of views, some are getting hundreds. I never know what's going to hit. So, if you do like it, share it with your friends and do the old like and subscribe. It makes it all seem a little bit more worthwhile. I hope you've enjoyed this and I will see you next time. Thank you for watching.